Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Young Ri. I'm a UX designer with the Office Experience Group, as well as the liaison for University of Washington, along with Sandler Vigors, who's unfortunately not here with us today here. So just to give you a background about myself, I was a student participating in the Design Expo event 3 years back at Carnegie Mellon. And I'm glad to be here again as a liaison, but just to give you a background a little more, over the course of sort of the 4 days that I was staying here in Seattle and Redmond area, we got to do so many things like scavenger hunt, looking around Seattle, getting to sort of mingle with these other students from all around the world. But we didn't get much of a sleep. Just getting the feedback, doing the dry runs, we probably got maybe 4 to 8 hours sleep through the 4-day period that we were staying here. But hopefully to prevent that this year, I was trying to do a better job with the UW students so that they had the weekend off and, had the time to actually mingle with the students. But fortunately, from what I hear, they spent the whole weekend tweaking their presentations. So my bad on my part on that one. Back to the actual class. So it was an interaction design class taught by Professor Axel Rosler from University of Washington's Division of Design. And the class consisted of about 40 students coming from diverse HCI backgrounds, including computer science, informatics, and technical communications, as well as all the design components. So it was a 10-week project where the students kicked off not in assigned teams, but they actually started off as a whole class to define what it really means for them as service meets social. So once they defined that questions for themselves, they went and then looked at their own interest into what kind of interest they have in that world where they say service and then social, and then sort of naturally formed their interest groups based on that. So these teams were not forced at all. They were purely based on their self-interest and then naturally formed sort of the project around that and had the really good dynamics around that also. So besides the winning team that I'm going to introduce soon, there were two very competitive projects. One was the Dear Democracy Project, which was a social platform for a community-based service that enables people to have more political awareness for those who are more politically active and those who are not. So just basically enhancing this platform and information to make people more aware of the sort of the stuff that's going on in the community regarding political issues. Another one was the Social Gym Project, which enabled peer-to-peer coaching. Basically, it was a community-based gym community-based project where peers could coach each other on how to get healthier and basically get physically more fit using this service. So here is the winning team, and it's up to you guys. Good luck.
Thank you very much. We're very happy to be here. I think before we get started, thanks are in order. Thank you to Microsoft for holding the Design Expo. The amounts of inspiration flowing through this room is pretty impactful. Thank you to Yang for being there whenever we needed him to give us critiques for a project. It's been a long development process. And specific thanks to Axel. You're awesome. My name's Tim. I'm a design studies major at UW, just graduated.
I'm John. I'm just entering the design major.
My name's Minnie, and I'm an interaction designer with a background in visual communication design.
I'm Tanya, and my background's in psychology and visual communication design.
I'm Sophie, and I just graduated in interaction design and industrial design.
And my name is Andrew Battenburg, and I'll be finishing my degree in informatics, human-computer interaction shortly. And we are very excited to present to you our project today, Open Door. So, to start, we envision a cross-platform mobile application that seeks to connect both you and your neighbors in your community to make you comfortable and to share and collaborate with one another. So, how did we get here? We sent out a poll, and what we got back, people said to us, we do not know our neighbors. And it is this great, great paradox that we can be so densely packed into suburbia and urban environments, and yet we feel more isolated and more alone than ever. We also looked at the state of tools and products today, and our consumer culture allows us to go out and buy a 100-piece tool set to use only once instead of just borrowing a handful of tools. And we believe that this is wasteful. And through our research, we found this statistic that really stuck with us throughout the whole process. To think that it takes more time to get in the car, drive to the store, purchase a drill, and get back home than the time you invest in actually using that drill. And so we explored and looked around at how we can increase those 10 minutes to 20, to 30, to an hour, and then get that drill moving around in different hands. Then we hit the drawing board. We laughed, we cried, we had some good times, and we really found the concepts that was going to be the glue for our project. These are the trends that we felt were very integral to Open Door. First, we want to see more quality goods instead of quantity. We also believe and value accessibility over ownership as a part of our service. And finally, we believe that through common interests can be found in your personal belongings.
So in terms of conceptualization, we also defined the positioning of our application. And we wanted to have more social than service in it. And by that, I mean we wanted more real-life interactions than virtual interactions. And lastly, we defined our vision, which starts with the personal goal of identifying needs for each user and ends with the collective goal of building a community network. So first, the user identifies needs so that he can share goods and services. And this is the service service dimension of our application. And then, by doing so several times without even thinking about it, he implicitly builds personal relationships with his neighbors, which builds a trustful community network. And this is really the social dimension of our application. So to sum up, the goal, the ultimate goal of our service is to create sustainable local communities through the exchange of goods and services. So let's now have a look at how it works. So there are 5 main steps. First, the user registers for the service. Then he searches for a good or a service. And once he finds one, he sends a request. Those 3 steps are run through the mobile application. From that point, both the lender and the borrower will meet on a face-to-face meeting to exchange the good or the service, or provide the service. And they will meet another time, a last time, to return the good, if it's a good. If a service, they won't. So the 2 last ones are face-to-face interactions. So what's important to notice here is that for the registration step, a user can register only in one neighborhood. And we did that so as to prevent from abusive usage of the service. For the search, the service will sort the result of the search by proximity because we use geolocation technology for that. For the request, so the borrower will send a request directly to the lender through the system. So there are no exchange of information between the borrower and the lender at this stage. And the borrower and the lender the same way replies to answer to the borrower. Once they agree on a meeting point, the next time they will meet on a face-to-face meeting to exchange the good. And also they will bump their phone together to have this exchange of information at this time only. And last time they will meet again to return the good, and they will bump the phones again. This will act as a receipt that the exchange is over. So now we are going to show you a quick video of our prototype.
So that was a video of our prototype, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how our application is structured and some of the core components of our application. So we really wanted to streamline the process of somebody looking for a need, make it easy and fast. And so we did this in limiting the number of sort of main navigation buttons on the home screen to search, profile, borrowing and lending buttons to allow you to see the status of your interactions with others in the community, as well as requests from people. And as you see, the profile sort of holds most of the functionality, which I will talk more about. So in creating the profile, we really wanted to play on the notion that people's belongings are indicative of their interests. And so a person first joins the neighborhood, they'll enter their location, but then they'll be asked to list their interests, such as gardening, tennis, or reading, for example. And within those interests, the user can then indicate what items they would like to share with the rest of the community related to that interest. So for example, if Sophie put in gardening, she might want to share a watering can or a rake, for example. We also have the option for people to indicate their level of perceived proficiency from novice to expert, and this is a way to filter and provide better matchmaking for people looking for a good or service. Within the profile, we also have a section called Toolbox, and this is more for utilitarian goods such as the power drill, and less interest-based, but we put this in to really help to encourage the idea of conscious consumption and the idea of buying better quality goods instead of quantity. And so as you saw in the video, you can simply take a picture of your object and it gets added into the database. And in this way, we also have the search, which is a key function of our service. It's there on the interface at all times. And this is where people can indicate what they're looking for, which then displays a map view of all the people in the neighborhood who have that item. And if the item isn't listed, then our service will refer you to people who have indicated an interest relevant to that item. So for example, if I put down that I'm looking for a guitar tuner, it's not in the system already, then it will refer me to somebody who has listed guitar playing as an interest. And more so to somebody who has a higher level of proficiency, because it's more likely that they'll have the object than a novice would. So in this way, we create a system based on interests. And we thought that that would facilitate more meaningful social connections in that you're not only matching people based on their needs, but common interests and lifestyles as well.
We also have a feature that is for something that might be a more urgent need, when someone might need the help of someone in the community under a little more stressful situation. So you saw in the video, when the bike is flat, there's a function that we have that you can push the immediate need button, and it will send out a request to anybody within a mile radius of you who is on open door. And what it will do is it will create that request, and it only lasts for 30 minutes, because you're assuming this is an urgent situation. And so if you can't help them, it's not a problem because it will go away. But if you are available and within a close vicinity, you can click accept, and it'll give you the option to call that person and help them. So as you saw, Andrew's able to help me because he was only a few blocks away. And so we wanted people to kind of go back to the idea of going next door and asking people for a cup of sugar or something that might have been socially acceptable at one point, but at this point isn't often the case. We also have the idea of using bump technology to kind of make these transactions viable and feel quantifiable, and not like you're just loaning your belongings to somebody that you don't know. So when you first exchange the item, you'll bump your phones and it connects you, so it tracks both the person that you're exchanging with, the starting date, and then of course the item itself. At the end of the transaction, it will give you also the same technology, you bump, and it will say, thanks for sharing, and it'll tell you that you can add them as a contact. So if you trust that person and you had a good relationship with them with that exchange, you know you get someone you can trade with again. So in that way, it builds a community. You also see on this screen, on the other side, that it has a virtual savings. It says you save $15. So I'll talk about that with this next feature, savings and stats. So what this does is it kind of accounts for the amount of money that you are saving using this program If you go out and buy a drill, if you go out and buy a hammer, you go out and buy a guitar tuner, all of these things are costing money. So by using this and moving these items around, every time you exchange, you're saving money. So it accounts for both your personal savings as well as the larger scale community savings. So feeling like you're a large contributor will positively reinforce that experience and want you to continue saving for both yourself and then also for your community. The last feature we have is showing the statistics within the community. So this one we're really proud of because it shows how the community grows over time in a very visual way. So the blue arrows are people who you have loaned to, and the red arrows are people you've borrowed from. So in this way, you can look at both your personal history with people within the community, but you can also see a larger scale of everyone who's exchanged within the community. So it's a very visual way of breaking down exactly how this system allows you to get to know people who you might not have known before and creates this network. And it is our hope that eventually this tracking of items and these tracking of exchanges will evolve into natural relationships, natural exchanges that occur without the use of the system necessarily, that actually come into real life. So that's our system we devised. I'm like, that's it.
I really like the pay it forward kind of network that this can kind of create. Just to start, I think I love seeing designers with a clear vision of what you want to go off and accomplish. And you guys stated it at the very beginning with your themes, your principles. I love seeing that because it really gives you a sort of a pure approach to what you're trying to do. You don't waver with featureitis. You really kind of get down to the core things that are important. And so I love seeing that, particularly in student design, because I think that's missing even in professional design a lot of times. We get kind of enamored with the features and we kind of forget about why we're doing it in the first place. So kudos for having that kind of clarity of vision early on. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on the services side. I didn't quite get how you do the services bit. I got the borrowing piece. But it gets to the next thing, which is how do you design trust into the system? Yeah, I see the smiles. Yeah, this almost is the case where you can, if you trust somebody after you exchange, you can share your contact. But how do you get people who don't know each other to trust? Or do you have a target audience that's more likely to engender trust with each other than sort of just people in the neighborhood? So I think that's really the big question in my mind. And have you talked to users to figure out where their sticking points might be with something like this? But I love the approach that you guys have, and I love the sharing of the stats. I like the self-reinforcement that creates in the system. But I'd love to hear the answer around the how you engendered the trust.
May I start with that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we talked with a lot of users about that, and we had a lot of different ideas. But the one we think would work the best, we didn't put it in the system because it was quite complex to explain, and we were expecting the question, so we were hoping you would ask it. But we were thinking that when you are looking for a good or a service online, and when the system shows you where you can find that, then you would be able to have a link directly to the system to the other social networks that already exist everywhere, Facebook, all of them. So we were thinking rather than trying to recreate that another time using what exists on the web already, and the system could be linked to that so that you could get some info about those people, see recommendations about them, feedbacks, how they live a little bit, without still knowing where they live or their address, etc. And the same thing for the lender. He could check that before answering as well. That's the thing we thought would work the best. And if you don't find any information, you're free not to ask and not to take contact with this person.
And I think there's one other kind of case in point is that with any sort of groundbreaking social networking service, such as eBay, I mean, people were just sending their stuff to someone random on the other end, and they had no idea. I mean, online dating, you're meeting a person for the first time, and you have no idea, and you're expecting to have a relationship with someone. And they've worked extraordinarily well, you know. So I think that with any kind of new proposal, you have to be willing to take a risk in the beginning to get the ultimate result. So.
Good answer.
Yeah. Also, congratulations. It's really good to see also a big team conquer this sort of challenge together, and it didn't feel like you guys lacked focus here. It felt like, you, to echo Andy's statement, you know, you set out with some pretty clear objectives, and conscious consumption, quality, is better than quantity, and all of those sorts of things are really important tenets for you and clearly demonstrated in the work. I wanted to also speak to the quality of the video, although it was a little long, I thought, perhaps, but it absolutely totally explained the value proposition. And if you can do that without words, like you can just sort of tell the story visually, it goes a long way to sort of selling the thing without the complex explanation about the information architecture and what buttons do what. And it was just like, yeah, I get it. I get the value. Really nice also that you forced the social interaction to be the sort of main thing rather than the technological, well, I'll mail it to you or whatever. It's sort of like it forces that handshake, which I think was commendable in the design, in making the design really work. So great job.
Thanks.
Yeah, the video, I was thinking, watching the video, that the movies get better and better every year. It's, almost everybody has a movie now, but this one had, who's the director of this piece?
We all were.
That's really nice. Who had the camera? That's the better question.
Team and Tanya.
It was really well done. I didn't think it was too long. You had me. Any of you guys on Foursquare? No? Wow, this is kind of a Foursquare meets Craigslist kind of thing, so I figured you were all on Foursquare. Foursquare could almost pull this off just with one little twist. Did you happen to look at the King County Solid Waste Divisions has a place where you can post materials? So if you have materials that you want to give away or you need to buy materials, the Solid Waste Division has a place you can go and post that stuff. You might want to go check that out. And anybody who lives in King County, it's really, really awesome service. And there was a moment there when you guys talked about the savings that you would get by having this service, and I sort of sensed in the crowd to sort of like, this was really like that was kind of a magic moment in the design. So and it's always good to have that little nugget that you can sell people on. But yeah, nice job.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.